Welcome to Sales for Nerds. I'm your host and chief nerd, Ruben Swartz. If you started a business because you love serving clients but realized you didn't like the sales and marketing aspect of running that business so much, this is the podcast for you. Sales and marketing doesn't have to suck. It can actually be a lot of fun. And on this show, we're going to teach you how to connect instead of network, teach instead of market, help instead of sell, so you can keep serving people even while you're building your pipeline and growing your business. Now let's get to it. Today, I'm super excited to have with me Bridget Hom. She is a mindset coach and the author of Stuck on Ready, which I want to get into in a second. And she talks about how you can get rid of the sabotaging influences and bring influences into your mind that promote sanity and serenity and success, and how to become more self-aware and emotionally intelligent and leverage the power of the law of deservability, which I would like to hear more about, and really become re-inspired through different ways of doing sales and getting results that aren't the same old slimy tactics. So, Bridget, I'm super excited to have you here, and I also want to thank you for making my scheduling so much easier with this episode, because we're going to talk about, well, we don't have glasses today, we have mugs. What do you have in your mug?
It's actually a little bit of vanilla soy milk and coffee.
Nice.
Right? And throughout the day that changes. All of a sudden it's water, and then it's a Celsius, and yeah, but right now it's coffee.
Perfect. And
yeah, go on.
I was say I've already had my coffee, and I was debating whether I should have a second cup, and I decided I should probably move to tea at this point.
Yeah, that's probably a good decision at some point during the day. What kind of tea do you like?
It's just plain old black tea.
What's on your cup? I see
It says, "Lord, give me coffee to change the things I can change, and wine to accept the things I can't."
You know what? That's so funny. I say a little bit of a different prayer, coming from a recovery background. God grant me the serenity. You've heard the serenity prayer, right?
Right.
But I also, there's another version. I don't think you've heard it. God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the people I can, and the wisdom to know that that's me.
Very nice. I like that.
So being in recovery for about 17 years in, Alcoholics Anonymous, I've learned so much. And I've actually extended some of the things that I've learned, like, expectations can become premeditated resentments, little awarenesses like that, that really have helped me to encourage, people who are not in, the recovery world to experience more serenity and sanity while they achieve success, which I think is right.
So I'm doing a good job here with my tea instead of my wine, but the message on my mug is probably not the most appropriate. But I love that it led us into that other saying, which I had not heard, and will definitely be keeping in mind. And I think that applies to so many of us. We spend so much energy on the things that we have no control over, and then we neglect the things that we actually have complete control over.
Yeah, I often say, when you're feeling out of your mind, you're probably in somebody else's.
Another good saying.
And when you're in somebody else's, you're definitely out of your mind.
There you go. I like that a lot too. Now, Bridget and I got connected through a random Zoom room somewhere, and we didn't even talk. We didn't get introduced, but she left, and I wish I could remember exactly what she said, but she left a funny, snarky comment in the chat. And I was like, I have got to get to know this person. And so we got together. We had a couple of great conversations. I said, Bridget, you got to come on Sales for Nerds. And as you can tell already in the opening minutes, she's full of wisdom and interesting sayings. Now, you didn't pop out of the womb with all this wisdom. Tell us a little bit about how you got here.
Oh my gosh, how did I come to this planet? Well, gosh, that's a whole nother story.
You can fast forward through a bunch of the boring stuff.
A bunch of the boring. I honestly, growing up in an Irish, Italian, Catholic family, I don't think there was any boring ever. We constantly had new guests at our dinner table every night growing up. But fast forward to a little bit more relevant material, I would say. My background was originally ministry and journalism. So I was a legal news reporter for a time. I was actually also working for my master's in Catholic theology at Notre Dame. But I realized I had this undercurrent of marketing mindset and sales going on. I actually told somebody ministry and marketing are the same things. You're just working on, the message that will speak to the person in front of you. And of course, that probably wasn't as well received as I would have liked it to be. But the truth is, I developed a lot of business strategies, took a lot of business courses, and realized it just was second nature. But I come by that honestly. My mom was PR, marketing. We had family meetings on Sunday nights, no joke, where we had to say yay and nay to the minutes of the following week. I had three younger siblings. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and my dad is in sales, has a company with my brother now, and I actually did a couple of workshops for them and speaking engagements. And so entrepreneurship was kind of in the blood.
Now, on one level, I think, reviewing the family meeting notes from the week before might be a little bit excessive. On the other hand, I'm like, it would be nice to be that organized. And sometimes I feel like things are just flying around and we don't have that level of control. So good on your parents for at least giving you got that foundation. So
Right.
how did you make the move from journalism and ministry, which I also like, are not so dissimilar from marketing, but it sounds like you moved out of that into a marketing role.
Yes. Well, okay. So during my 20s, I'm gonna just be real and raw because I think that's what we do here. And I don't know any other way to be. So I lived a pretty bougie lifestyle in my 20s. Had three nannies, people to help with cleaning. I traveled the world. I really didn't do a ton. I did ministry and I was always helping people in front of me, but I was really a stay-at-home mom, AKA a domestic engineer,
There you
right?
go.
I added that on a resume. For those of you who are listening who may have been stay-at-home parents, domestic engineer is totally something you can add to your resume. Team management, leadership skills, conflict resolution skills, and excellent time management. Add those to a resume because I did. But I really learned that working for somebody was not going to be for me. So I got coaching certified, and I actually met a gentleman on the salsa dancing floor. By the way, hobbies are important to your success. And he said, Bridget, I want to launch a business. So I launched a placement agency with him. And so I would life coach the clients who we were helping to find the right assisted living and memory care facility for them and do a lot of mindset work for the families involved. So that led into where I am now. Because during the reinvention evolution of 2020, that job disappeared. And my coaching business, which was a side hustle at the time, Bridge to Freedom Coaching, kind of emerged. So during 2020, can I tell a quick little story about this?
Please.
I think it might encourage the people who are maybe at a spot where they're starting up their business. Maybe they're solo parents. Maybe you're, just saying, how could I enter entrepreneurship as an employee mindset? Or I hate my corporate job, whatever that looks like. But during the reinvention evolution of 2020, I just moved out of my big, beautiful home. I was actually on my way to getting Zoom divorce, which is a thing. You know that?
I do now.
Yeah. And I moved into an apartment with my three young savages. I mean, my three sweet boys. And
Right.
I had to really figure out what I was going to do next to make money. And I considered Instacart shopping. Do you like Instacart shoppers? Have you heard of it?
I tried it once or twice, but I'm one of those people who wants to pick out my own vegetables. I'm sorry. I'm just too much of a control freak.
I understand that. I am not a control freak in that setting, at least. So I love Instacart shoppers, but the truth was that that wasn't the next thing for me and my purpose. And so I got a random Zoom link in my inbox, still to this day, no idea how. And I showed up on a Thursday morning at 8 a.m. This guy, Brian, goes, Bridget Hom, give your 30 seconds. And I said, dang it, he mispronounced my last name. What am I supposed to say? And in a split second decision, I said, Bridget Hom here with Bridge to Freedom Coaching. Are you ready to level up? And I had 6 clients within 6 weeks. My 90-day Find Your Freedom program was born. My sales trainings, my live speaking engagements, the book Stuck on Ready, and then my other self-paced programs. And well, here we are today, Ruben.
All right. There's a lot that I want to digest quickly because we want to actually get into some of the stuff. But let's go back to this salsa dance. Like that's a pretty impressive salsa dance. What exactly happened in those few minutes on the dance floor that he's like, we're going to launch a business together?
It's so funny because if anyone's going through some stuff, salsa dancing lessons is the way to go because it really does
Apparently.
help you with emotional intelligence, clearing your head space. I actually had a gentleman on the dance floor go, what's going on with you? We can't dance right now. You've got too much going on in your head, and I can tell. So highly recommend dance lessons. We were just chatting, off the dance floor. And he goes, I have this vision for a placement agency. He was in the seniors industry. I looked at him and I go, Walter, I haven't worked for a long time. I have no idea what you're talking about. And he goes, it's okay. Anywhere we go, networking or otherwise, just be you. And that was the best advice that I ever received in business. Because oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we forget that we're supposed to just be us and we try to be someone else. Like I can't be Tony Robbins or John Maxwell. It will never work. Well, first of all, for the obvious, I'm a woman. But secondly, we all have our unique skill sets. You have a unique skill set that the world needs for you to present in business. And so that's how that started.
It's so true. I mean, I spent years thinking I was supposed to be somebody different, more seasoned, more polished, more whatever. And I don't think that's an excuse to be unprofessional or treat people unkindly. You want to show up as the best version of yourself, but it's exhausting trying to be someone else. And everyone can tell that something isn't right. And even if you're doing it for the right reasons or with good intentions, it comes across as phony and fake, and it's just going to lead to bad places. And it's so much more fun to be yourself.
Yeah, I agree. My mom says it's so much fun being me. She just loves sitting in her own headspace. She hires the right mental team, apparently.
There we go. And if for some reason that's not working out for you, you're the person that you can change, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like that serenity prayer.
Exactly. So let's talk about this concept of stuck on ready. What does that mean?
Well, it means stuck on ready to take imperfect action. Because imperfect action leads to massive results. Here's why. If we're trying to take perfect action all the time, we're sitting in procrastination. And business without action is no business, is unemployed, is no monetizing your influence, no clients. And so you must be stuck on ready to make moves, even if you're unsure about the next right move. Just go out and meet people. That's really the part that we start to procrastinate, obsess about, hire the wrong mental team. Like, this person doesn't want to talk to me. Well, why not? Go and reach out to them. Talk to them about, hey, would you like another referral partner? Hey, I believe empowered people empower people. It's like, I believe we could all help each other with personal development or professional development. What do you think? Those are just some cold LinkedIn outreach strategies. If you're listening right now, you could totally use them. But the truth is, that is it. Empowered people empowered people. And that, I believe, is authentically us as entrepreneurs. We started with that desire to help people. And sometimes you don't know what that looks like. I developed my entire 90-day Find Your Freedom program through working with people. I remember the person I talked to, and I said, you've got to hire the right mental team. And I go, hire the right mental team. That's a session. So you have to be stuck on ready, and I was explaining this to one of my clients who's huge, amazing speaker, speaks about overcoming adversity. And, I was telling him he was reaching out to new speaking engagements or possibilities. And then, one of them said, hey, do you speak about mental health? And he said, absolutely. And I said, because the chef doesn't cook the meal until it's ordered. So sometimes as an entrepreneur, you need to be ready to say, yes, I can absolutely help you with this, even when you're not 100% convinced that you can. I mean, you got to be like at least 90% there. Let's be honest.
Right.
But yeah, and that's how you start to create more content, that create more relationships, create more conversations that lead to helping you monetize your influence and serve others with your solution.
So when we say stuck, we don't mean you're can't escape. You mean you're permanently on the setting of I'm ready to do stuff.
Absolutely. Stuck on ready versus stuck in sabotage, stuck in procrastination. We talk about stuck on sabotage a lot in the entrepreneurship world, right? It's a constant.
Tell us a little bit more about what tends to happen to people in that state.
Oh man, and I'll tell from personal experience as well. We hire the wrong mental team. We sit, wherever we are, I'm in my virtual office, we sit and we just sell ourselves these lies and limiting beliefs about how nobody wants our product, message, or service. And then we inevitably start selling our prospects our limiting beliefs, and those are expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So you always want to be in the setting in your mindset where you never sit in those limiting beliefs or sabotage for very long, because it starts to eat away at your motivation and your ambition and your ability to empower somebody else. So if you're in a place where you're like, I'm just not motivated, all right, go out and have a conversation right now. Go do it. Do the next right thing, even if you don't feel it, because feelings aren't your friends in business. Action is, though, and that will help
There
you
you
break
go.
that.
And I think almost all of us have somebody that worst case scenario, you could call and say, I feel stuck. I feel these doubts. I feel all this stuff. Can I get a pep talk? And there are people that I call. I like to think I'm a pretty motivated person. I really enjoy what I do, but I have those crappy days where I'm just like, oh man, what is wrong with my head? And I call some people up. I'm like, dude, I need one of those pep talks again. And some of them we reciprocate. They will call me and say the same thing. And it's great. I think we have this illusion that we're supposed to bring everything to the table ourselves inside our own skull, and we're supposed to dream it all up and provide all the motivation. We sort of have this myth in our culture that great leaders and great businesses spring forth from someone's head like Athena coming out without any interaction with anybody else. So that's not how it happens at all.
No, that's not accurate at all. I mean, honestly, I can't get excited about my business unless I'm talking to someone about theirs. And that's just the truth for all of us in entrepreneurship. But we have to bridge that gap. Bridge to freedom coaching. You have to bridge that gap and make sure that there's another person on the other side of that bridge that you're showing up well and authentically for, but then you're ready to empower them with a solution or value, no matter what. If they buy from you or not, your job is to empower them, and you're going to do that, damn it, no matter what.
And people listening to this can probably get the sense that Bridget's a little bit more extroverted than I am, just a tad. And so people are going to say, well, that works great for Bridget, but it could never work for me. I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people. And as the other side of that coin, I will say that I agree 100% with what Bridget is saying. And it's even more important when you're introverted to do this, because you're not going to have these interactions naturally the way that an extrovert would. They're just going to kind of go talk to people. We have to actually do it intentionally, which seems daunting, but it's actually totally empowering, because we get to pick who we talk to, what we talk about, where are we going to go with these conversations. And most of us, and I know I did this for years, it's just like, well, I don't want to bother someone. They might not be interested, whatever, right? Versus we all know so many amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
And most consultants that I know, their biggest complaint is, I want more leads. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Are you talking to the people who are eager to hear from you now? Or are you going to work really hard to bring more people into your world that you're not going to follow up with?
And I think there's something very important that you said. If you're introverted, you're not responsible for creating the content of the conversation. You don't have to be. Even as an extrovert, I oftentimes don't. I maybe say a couple things here and there, but mostly I'm pausing with a purpose to listen to that person. So flip half your supposed statements that you want to give into questions, and you will be deemed the best conversationalist.
That's right. Listening is, people want to talk to people who listen to them, not people who are just queuing up the next thing they're going to say.
Yeah, I've had the one-sided one-on-one. And you want to practice this communication strategy too. It's like, what I love about what you just said is this. That's a great segue. And then you say, now, did we honor the intention that you brought to our time together today?
I love that. Now, how should people kind of go about doing this? Because I'm guessing there's some folks listening who are like, yeah, that all makes a lot of sense in theory, but how do I get started, and how do I make sure that I'm talking to the right people? Because at least I'm convinced that a lot of the issues we have with these kind of conversations is we try to we try to go too broad, and then you end up trying to, whether you're doing it consciously or not, you end up trying to sell people that you really should not be selling, and they're not raising their hands and begging to buy because they're not the right people. And I know I asked a bunch of questions there, but can you help lay out the stepping stones for people to get to the state you're talking about where they're comfortable reaching out and having these conversations?
Sure. If you're a startup entrepreneur, I highly recommend you go on the premise of creating empowered referral partnerships. That's how you reach out in conversation. And then I encourage you to have 30 conversations a week on your virtual calendar, of course, because there people are intentional with meeting with you. So I'm going to actually go against the grain here and say, don't get so wrapped up with creating your ideal client right away. Because if you're a startup entrepreneur, you have no idea. And honestly, that's how I was when I started. I'm like, I'm going to create these conversations. We're going to have them. And then I'm like, oh, I could absolutely help that person. And you start to become convinced and grow more confident in your ability to help people with certain things. And it hits you when you're in a conversation with them. So you have to be having, number one, have at least 25 to 30 conversations a week. Isn't that what you have, Ruben? Do you have
Yeah.
about? Yeah. So you know that it's the conversations. It's not, the content creation that gets people curious, on social media, et cetera. But conversations lead to conversion of clients. And so I encourage you in that. And then after you've done that for probably about 6 weeks, 6 weeks, I would say you've already been open to saying something like, oh, I can absolutely help you with that. And that's okay. That's okay. You want to become comfortable with saying that when you hear someone's problem that you can absolutely help them with, be ready to say, I can absolutely help you with that. And also be ready with an offer of saying, hey, we can work together for this amount of time. This is the pricing. So come up with that structure for yourself. And then in 6 weeks, you'll probably get to more refined, noticing what people want. Like, oh, working for 6 weeks together, that worked well. Oh, I've started to create my program title or my consulting services. That worked well. I'm going to start changing the banners on my social media to speak to this. So that's what I encourage you. If you don't know your ideal client, have more conversations. And then that will lead to you knowing that with confidence.
It's such an important point. I think so many of us, and I fell down this rabbit hole as well. It's like, well, I was really busy doing business development. I was creating content. I was sending out newsletters. I was doing all these things that work great if you really do have that profile nailed down, but are a complete waste of time if you don't. And the only way to fix it is to have those conversations. And it's totally okay to even reach out to some of the folks in your network, the mentors, advisors, those types of people, and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this. What I feel like there's wording that I'm missing. And oftentimes it's like somebody else can just tell you in 30 seconds something that you have been beating yourself up over for weeks because it's just too close to your face.
And don't forget to use the power of the network. Alignable, LinkedIn, Facebook. Ask people, well, hey, what do you think about this tagline?
Yeah.
I was talking to a client yesterday. They're like, what do you think I do? And I'm like, what a great question. Thank you for asking. I had someone ask me that early on too. They're like, what do you do? It's obviously coaching. I'm like, well, what do you think I do? And man, I got the greatest response. They're like, you're an amazing executive coach. You do team and leadership building trainings. Okay, I'd been doing this for like 5 weeks. So I hadn't had that level of success. However, that's what I was putting out there. So the second tip that I would give anyone starting out is look the part before you feel the part or before you are the part.
What does that mean, looking the part these days?
Well, if you are selling services that require an exchange of money, you don't want to be sitting in your bedroom and, wearing a hoodie and then saying, hey, I mean, unless that's a part of your brand. Some people have monetized that as part of their persona. But for many of us who are in business, you want to look professional. Even you have the National Geographics, that's a conversation starter. Have something in your background that's either a conversation starter or helps you to feel polished and professional. If you're asking, well, for money, let's just be real and raw here. So, and also your Zoom box is part of your marketing strategy. Have something behind you that is a conversation starter that would apply to your brand in some way. And
But
this is also a mindset, right? I put on the blazer for my mindset as well as the professional brand.
and you have a two-colored shirt on underneath the blazer, which is an exciting wrinkle in your brand, I noticed.
Thanks.
See, I just, for folks who are listening to this and not watching the video, I'm pretty clueless about this stuff, but even I noticed Bridget always has on a nice blazer and a single colored shirt underneath. And they're different colors, but that's sort of like the quasi uniform. And then today for our interview, she's got a green blazer and a black and white shirt. And it's enough that even I notice, which is pretty remarkable, right? And again, for people who are listening and not watching, I've got this row of National Geographics on the bookshelf behind me. And when we fell into Zoom land in COVID, I kept thinking, oh gosh, I've got to like have a professional background. And everyone's like, hey man, are those National Geographics? Oh, I love those, blah, blah, blah. And it's the thing everyone talks about. So I'm like, okay, I'll just leave them there because I really like them, obviously.
Oh yeah, it's so perfect for you. And I mean, who doesn't love a good National Geographic?
I don't know, not people I want to work with.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. This is like an easy way to say, like, oh, that's my ideal client. They like National Geographic. Check.
Now, let's talk a little bit about what happens next, because I feel like sometimes people can actually pull off this strategy, probably not as well and as intentionally as you talk about, but they end up 6 months, 18 months, whatever in, and they now have this sort of smorgasbord of clients they've been able to help. And then they struggle with, okay, that sort of initial burst of energy, the referrals from the network came in, and I have all these disparate dots that I'm trying to connect and unify or jettison or whatever so that I can really hone in on my true calling and passion and ideal client and so on. What should people do then?
Well, you by that time, I mean, you definitely want to have the setup. I'm a firm believer. 3 months in business, if you're doing the 30 conversations, if you're mastering the ability to confidently, see that you're doing people a disservice if you don't share how you could possibly help them with their problem, then all you need to do is stay in the right structure in your headspace where you're able to say, hey, I'm not dealing with sabotage, or I'm not dealing with limiting beliefs. I'm focused on the destination of my future successful self. And I'm clear on that roadmap of what it needs to get there. And you might say, Bridget, this sounds pretty vague. But the truth is, I've always had, a coach that held me accountable to that bigger plan so that I can keep my eye on the prize. Because in entrepreneurship, it's very similar to if you're in a ship and you're in the ocean and you go off 1 degree, you're going to end up at an entirely different destination, which I believe that's probably the number one problem for most entrepreneurs trying to do it themselves, to navigate the business world completely alone. No entrepreneur is an island, right? You would agree with that. A community of people have helped us to get to where we are today. So I would say having a very clear destination of where you're headed and then work backwards,
So
map that out.
that makes sense. And at the same time, I think that's the problem. People are like, well, I could go in this direction. I could go in that direction. I could go both directions. That's usually what they try to do, or all three, or whatever it is. How do they figure out that North Star?
I've always had people easily define their future successful selves when I've asked them to envision what their future successful self is doing. Most people get caught in the minutia of setting these goals for themselves, and they're disjointed. They're not connected to an anchor of a destination. Everything in entrepreneurship is about direction, decisions, and destinations. And a confused mind does nothing. So every single day, you must have a clear direction. You must be clear on the decisions that you need to make and the decisions you want your prospects to make, and making sure it's aligning with that destination of your future successful self.
So,
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, and I was going to say, taking that to a functional level of task management, you want to be looking at your day and saying, hey, are all of my actions lining up with monetizing my influence? Clients, prospects, prospecting, networking, and then content creation. That's typically the list for the entrepreneur or business owner who's functioning and growing their business every day.
So this makes a lot of sense. And at the same time, just to play devil's advocate, sometimes you end up having a really fun salsa dance with somebody and it completely changes your your destination. How do we know sort of when the time has come for us to change course versus keep going to what we had previously defined?
How do we know to change course? Well, the truth is, you always want to ask yourself, is it something within me that's missing? Like, am I not well versed on the closing conversation, which is a struggle that many entrepreneurs are afraid of, the ask.
Mm-hmm.
And just for you who are listening, the close is the organic plug-in point that gives your prospect the opportunity to solve their problems faster. So that's that. But how do you know that you're off course? Well, you're not making money.
What if you're on course? Okay, so I get it. So if you're not making money and then you have the salsa dance, that should be an easy one. But sometimes I feel like you're going along, you're doing great, you're going where you defined as your destination, but then you shift and it might be 1 degree, it might be 90 degrees, I don't know. And sometimes this seems to be the thing that causes people to really get where they belong. They just didn't know that in the first place. And at the same time, you don't want to be scatterbrained and constantly changing course, right? So how do you navigate that tension?
Well, the truth is you're going to find other opportunities along the way. You just want to make sure that is an opportunity. There has to be an even exchange of energy. For example, I've had a lot of very, very good business owners who say, hey, I'd like to partner with you on some endeavors. And that could look as a deviation. And so those collaborations, you want to make sure that you're creating an even exchange of energy. You want to make sure that the expectations are clear, that there is profit involved. Always, you want to be able to talk about that. If you're not talking about profit in your collaborations, that's not a part of your business endeavors. Just want to encourage you in that, because that's the truth. It's like I believe every entrepreneur deserves to put food on the table, but the path to get there has to be with motivation and empowerment, and making sure that you're in alignment with the person in front of you. So if you deviate from the plan and it's a well-suited opportunity, it's still going to align with your future successful self.
Okay.
It won't go take you out into a forest when you're on the ocean. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Sounds good. Now let's talk about also as you're going along, let's assume that you do have the right stars to navigate by. You are on course. Sometimes you are going to have those moments of doubt and self-sabotage. How can we recognize them as early as possible? I'm assuming that's what we want to do and deal with them.
You really have to be addressing your headspace every single day. You really have to be intentional. So I created the Stuck on Ready mindset programming, and I actually do my own programming every day, where you brain dump. You look at your own mental rehearsal, who you're being when you're doing. You are hiring and firing the right mental team. So you're seeing, because as entrepreneurs, we're typically in relationship with our thoughts about people versus people themselves. And so I think it's wise to hire and fire the right mental team first and foremost in the morning. Your headspace is your launch pad for how successful or not successful your business will be. So daily.
And so what should we do to sort of get in game mode before the
Well,
day starts?
all right, that's a great question. The first strategy that I always give every single person who even gets on my calendar, I say, you want to break free from the human doingness and get into the human beingness so that you can do doing well. So you're like, what does that mean, Bridget? Well, it starts with, I don't know about you, but I have a question for you. So do you wake up with a never ending to-do list?
Yes.
Okay. And the to-do list never really ends until you're dead or you have no job, right?
Even then, it never ends until you die, basically. And it will never be complete. It will never be done.
Exactly. So how do you make it digestible each day? And if you don't make it digestible each day in clear action steps that honor all the roles that you have to play in your life and business, then inevitably you're going to kill yourself with sabotage at the end of each day, selling yourself on I'm a failure. So the first thing you want to do, the first step every day, is do a brain dump. So you set a 2-minute timer, get a pen and paper, and you write for 2 minutes. whatever is going on in your headspace, because you have to gain self-awareness so that you will be able to be connected to yourself, therefore be able to better and best connect with the other person in front of you.
So this could be a to-do list. This could be what I'm worried about. This could be what I'm excited about. It's just whatever is floating around in there.
Well, yes, because you have to see whatever is floating around in there so that you can give it some direction.
Okay, so then we've got it all on paper, and then what? What do we do?
Well, and then you hire and fire the right mental team. So look at those qualities that are floating around, those ideas that are floating around that are negative, and shift them to a positive. And usually you have to do that with action. So let's say that you've hired resentment on your mental team. I'm sure you've never hired resentment on your mental team in entrepreneurship.
Never.
Right? So, so you'd write resentment, draw an arrow, and see who you have to hire. I say who because we very much have relationships with our thoughts, and those relationships dictate whether we're going to take action or not in our business lives. So then you would write, okay, I'm going to write motivation or serenity. And then you're going to give yourself an action step. I'm going to do 10 minutes of meditation to become serene. Or I'm going to go listen to a motivational video right now to get motivated. Or I'm going to go work out. You've heard of the 5 a.m. club. That's a real thing. Because, the books like Eat That Frog, do the next right thing in the morning, do what you don't want to do first, and then everything else becomes so much easier to do during your workday. So brain dump first, become intentional, harness your intentionality, and then you'll connect better with anyone in front of you, which will serve you in business growth.
So I'm a big fan of meditation. I'm a big fan of working out. But sometimes it's like, okay, now I've cleared some headspace to do the thing, but I haven't actually fixed the problem yet. Like I resent someone because they said they wanted to partner with me and then they ghosted me or whatever. Let's just take that as an example, right? So what's the actual, I'm assuming I have to do something business wise as well to like really flip this thing around, no?
Well, obviously, every part of your day as an entrepreneur is meeting your clients' needs and prospects, and then prospecting. So what do? You put that new motivated energy into fueling your desire for more business growth, to serve more people with solutions. And the more you do this activity, and of course, there's a couple of other things that you can do. Pop on my calendar, we'll have a conversation.
There you go.
But the truth is, you need to continue to fire resentment off your mental team and see how it doesn't serve you, and continue to propel yourself forward in what does. And then your number one goal becomes to empower that person in front of you and having more conversations, doing that, what you're not feeling, feelings aren't your friends. That pulls you out of that. And the more times you practice that mindset shift through action, that's how you're going to achieve breaking free from that resentment entirely.
So instead of saying, gosh, I'm so frustrated with so-and-so, let me go talk to those other 5 partners that I'm overdue to speak with and see what great things we can cook up together, something like that.
Absolutely. The mindset of the entrepreneur has to be constantly problem aware and solution seeking, and seeing that they have absolute limitless potential. So being aware of anything that might cause you to stumble or block you from that limitless potential has to be done away with. And that starts with awareness first, right? Because many of us are just functioning with the wrong mental team, saying, what should I do? And they're like, you shouldn't reach out to anyone. There's this really funny YouTuber, Juggling with the Jenkins. Have you ever heard of her?
I guess we'll put that in the show notes.
Oh yeah. If my brain had a morning meeting is the series. Hilarious. I highly encourage anyone who needs a good laugh to check into that YouTube show.
All right. Awesome. Bridget, this has been super helpful. I like to think that I know all this stuff, but I don't. And it's always helpful. Even some of the stuff that it's like just being reminded. Maybe you should go. Thanks for listening. Drop an iTunes review or a review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you've got a friend who would benefit from this episode, let them know about it. If you've got a friend who wouldn't benefit from this episode, but you just haven't talked to for a while, now's a great time to give them a call. Thanks for listening. Until next time.